My care about getting in this race is about my belief in America and my concern that what we're seeing with this president is a change in course for America to become something we wouldn't recognize. I think he's drawing us into becoming more like a European social welfare state. I think he wants us to become an entitlement society where the people in this country feel they're all entitled to something from government and where government takes from some to give to others. I'm running to make sure that we don't transform America into something we don't recognize, but instead we restore the principles that made America the hope of the earth.
And welcome back to the special edition of Hannity. We're live. We're in beautiful Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. Joining me now is the candidate who made history by winning both in Iowa and in New Hampshire, and the man who you just heard from, and that's former Massachusetts Governor Mitt Romney. Governor, how are you? Good to see you. Thanks for being with us.
Thanks, Sean. Good to be with you.
You know, you said something there, and that we're going towards, or this president's moving towards European socialism. I asked you this question, but you don't want to say he's a socialist or he's adopted socialist policies. Is that just...
You know. Oh, I think some of the policies he's adopted are very much like the European socialist policies. There's no question but that he wants to see much bigger government. He wants to see it more intrusive. He wants it more regulatorily driven. He wants to see higher tax rates. He's comfortable with huge deficits. He wants the healthcare system to be run by the federal government. Look, he wants to make us almost like another state of Europe. Even as Europe is trying to become more like America, he wants to make us more like Europe. It's the wrong course for America.
Yeah. It came up twice in the debate tonight, the issue of super PACs. You addressed it late in the debate in an exchange with Newt Gingrich, earlier in the debate in an exchange with Rick Santorum. Having interviewed all the candidates, there is palpable anger specifically at your supporting super PAC. You don't have any influence over it. But what I think they're arguing, what they're saying is that if you could say, hey, these ads have got to be factually accurate. Have you seen the ads? Do they have a legitimate case? Can you say to them, you know what, I don't agree with that. That's got 3 Pinocchios, 4 Pinocchios, or whatever it is, and say maybe it's time to pull that?
Look, and I've said time and again, anything in the ads that's not accurate, please take it off. Look, the other guys on the stage, they have plenty of warts to point at without having to make up
they have plenty
warts.
of Pinocchios as well?
Well, of course. And Rick Santorum says, look, it's not fair that the super PAC, I guess, and I haven't seen it, but says that he wants to give voting rights to felons. Well, he wants to give it to people who were former felons. I think they still call people who were in jail, convicted of a felony, they still call them felons.
Right.
So apparently it is accurate. I mean, I haven't seen the ad, but it sounds like it is accurate. And my own view is people who've committed violent crimes in their past, even though they've served their time, should not be allowed to vote in our system. His view is they should be allowed to vote. And that's why I guess the super PAC ran that ad. But again, I haven't seen it. We'll let him describe it. Look, this whole idea that there are these organizations out there that run ads that we as candidates can't even talk to, can't tell them what to do and what not to do. It's an outrageous setting, and it makes us all uncomfortable.
See, it was interesting because there were 2 moments tonight. You said you were against McCain-Feingold, and John McCain obviously is supporting your campaign. And then it came up earlier on the issue of negotiating with the Taliban, an article that was written by one of your advisors on national defense, and you distanced yourself on the issue of negotiating with the Taliban there. How can we interpret that? Does that mean that you can have friends and allies that you're going to strongly disagree with in the administration if you were to win?
Of course. You can't imagine that everybody that advises me has the same position on every issue or that I would agree with them. There's just a wonderful book out on Dwight Eisenhower. Every one of his advisors said that he ought to be using nuclear weapons as part of our tactical warfare capacity. And he said, I'm not going to. He disagreed with all of them. So I'm happy to get advice from a lot of different people and listen to some things, and I'll agree with him on some, disagree on others. Senator McCain and I, we've had this discussion on McCain-Feingold before.
He and I have had a few heated discussions on it.
We disagree on that one. I don't think he likes this idea of super PACs any more than I do. I think where it's gone is not something people are comfortable with.
What about the whole issue of Bain? Came up a lot in the days and weeks now leading up to this debate. I think the strongest language, and it came up, was from Governor Perry, vulture capitalism, casting ethics aside, and issues like that. And also the question of how many jobs net did you create? Was it 100,000 jobs? You mentioned Staples. You mentioned the sporting goods store.
Sports Authority.
And some other.
Those 4 alone,
yeah.
Sports Authority, Staples, Bright Horizons Children's Centers, and Steel Dynamics, have today about 120,000 jobs. And we were there at the beginning. We helped found them. Of all the companies that I was involved with that actually jobs were lost, they've been reported on by all sorts of people who've investigated this, and it ends up to less than 10,000. So do the math. 120,000 less 10,000, and it's over 100,000.
Can you explain, maybe some people just don't understand what is involved? Some of these companies, were they headed for bankruptcy if they didn't have an infusion of cash? Was the likelihood that they were to go bankrupt high when you invested money in some of the companies? You know,
well, some businesses.
In other words, were they going to lose all those jobs?
Well, some were in real difficulty. I remember one that lost over $50 million the year before we made the investment to try and help turn it around, and it's still in business today, I understand. So in some cases, we were able to make some turnarounds that saved some jobs. And in my own experience, which is I've run 4 operations or been the leader of 4 operations, one a consulting firm, one a venture capital and private equity firm, the other an Olympics, and the other a state. All 4 of those were successful and grew. And we invested in lots of others. But, you know, I'm happy to describe my experience in the private sector. What I think is a little unusual is to have fellow Republicans attacking what is an integral part of our private sector. Michael Moore apparently said today, I think Newt Gingrich is one of the escaped members of my staff. He says, this is what I've been saying for 20 years. It's like, you know, if you're carrying Michael Moore's water, that's a bit of a problem.
All right, I'll let you bring that up. But Newt, you have another debate I hear coming up later this week. Let me ask you one last question before we have to let you go, because it's interesting. A lot of people that are writing me are concerned. This is getting pretty personal in these campaigns. Things are getting pretty tough. You've been pretty tough with your ads against Newt, against Santorum, the Super PAC.
Actually, not you. Actually, not me. Actually, you watched this debate tonight. You watched the debate tonight.
Yeah.
I don't think you heard me criticize anybody on the stage.
I'm talking more about
and likewise, the ads that we have all been positive. So, you know, I'm going to take exception with the premise.
It's the premise being I can tell you from speaking with the other candidates, there's palpable anger about the Super PAC ads, and they had wanted you to denounce them and say that
anything that's inaccurate, and I said this in the last debate, they should take them off the air.
You haven't looked at them? You haven't seen them?
No, I haven't seen them. I got reported on one of them. I got the report on one, but the others, and there are a bunch out there, I haven't seen them. The one that Santorum spoke about with regards to felons, it sounds like it's accurate.
You have
Someone
any
who's
worry
been in jail is a felon, but anyway.
Any worry that the party will unite behind the eventual nominee? You've won Iowa, you've won New Hampshire.
None whatsoever.
So this will all pass away.
Even if it's not me, even if it's someone else, I'm going to unite behind them. We have on that stage 5 people, any one of which is better than Barack Obama, and we're going to get behind that nominee and make sure that we take this country back.
I don't know if 4 years ago people would have predicted that you and John McCain were getting along as well today. So,
you know, we're all on the same team. We have some differences. There's no question we have differences, and differences in background. In my life was spent in the private sector, and the other guys spent their time primarily in government. So there are some differences in background, but our views on issues are pretty close,
pretty nuanced.
And there are some points of significance, but where we come in different directions.
Yeah,
particularly
Ron Paul said 0%.
I'm not quite sure how we're going to have a military with 0% tax.
All right,
but, you know,
it was interesting. You notice every number kept going down as they went across. Governor, good to see you again.
Thanks,
Thank you
Sean.
so much for being with us.
Good to see you.
And coming up, GOP presidential candidates Newt Gingrich and Rick Santorum. They're going to join us live in the spin room. We'll also check in with Juan Williams. He had a pretty heated debate with Newt Gingrich tonight. Dick Morris, as the special edition of Hannity live from Myrtle Beach, South Carolina continues.